Hi folks, Peter Brzezinski here. With a name like Brzezinski, what am I doing in Australia? Well, I'll tell you what, there's not too many genuine Australians down here. I come from an Irish-Italian background. In fact, I think my grandfather came from Italy looking for gold. I don't know too many things about life, but there's one thing I can tell you a lot about, and that's Opal. And I'm pleased to pass it on to you. You never know, I might cark it one day, so it's good for other people to have the knowledge as well. Well, what better pointer to use than a bit of wheat from our property at Lightning Ridge. That's true, they grow wheat out there in the opal fields. It's not where you find the opal. The opal is found on the ridges and the wheat is grown in the black soil plains. But we're not talking about wheat here, we're talking about opals. I thought I would just give you a bit of an idea about where opal is found in Australia. I don't know if you know much about the continent itself, but if you recognise it, that's it there. I believe it's around about the size of the United States. Yeah, a lot of Australians sort of live around the coastal areas, like around here, where it's greener, because in the middle here it's very desert-like, the Simpson Desert. So let's just have a look at the states of Australia. You've got Western Australia, the Northern Territory, Queensland, South Australia, New South Wales, Victoria, and Tasmania is down here, which is often forgotten, which is terrible, but it's sort of a little bit off the continent, so it gets missed out on maps like this, but we certainly don't do that deliberately. Now, just to explain where the different opals come from in this continent, we have the boulder opal fields here in the Queensland area, starting from Opalton up the top, or the town of Winton, there's a W there, and the fields stretch right down here to Quilpie and Yower, and there's a little place around about there called Koroit, which is west of the town of Cunnamulla. That's where the boulder opals come from. And we are mining at present in that area in Koroit. Then you go south of the border and you'll come to a place called Lightning Ridge, and that's where the famous black opal comes from. Of course, all of the opal fields produce some black opals and some crystal opals, but Lightning Ridge is famous for its black opal. If you keep going southwest here, you go through a little place called White Cliffs. That's not too far from Broken Hill in this border region. White Cliffs was one of the largest opal fields in the world. Eventually they mined it out, and so there's not much left there now, although there are still people mining in White Cliffs. Produces a beautiful crystal opal there. Just continuing southwest, we come to the city of Adelaide, down here where that golden star is, and you go north towards Alice Springs, which is here. You'll find the opal mining town of Andamuka, which is near Roxbury Downs, a big Olympic dam there where they mine uranium. We go northwest and we come to the famous Coober Pedy fields. I think my cap, yeah, there you go, I bought that cap in Coober Pedy. It's a good one, isn't it? So Coober Pedy is the largest opal field in the world, although at present they're struggling. There's not that much opal coming out, but it produces mainly crystal or white opal, although as we said earlier, you get a little bit of black opal down there too, and dark opal. Black opal and dark opal are basically the same family. Just coming north from Coober Pedy, we come to little places like Minturby and other opal towns that are close by there, and eventually if you keep going north you'll come to Ayers Rock, which is now called Uluru, which is the proper Aboriginal name for it. Boulder opal, well, let's start in the south. The boulder opal in the south consists of smallish type boulders like these here. And you'll notice that sometimes in the middle of these boulders there's a little kernel, and sometimes, very rarely, you'll find a kernel full of opal. And at times they might break open or cut open 1,000 pieces or more before they find any opal in the middle. These are what are known as Yower nuts, but these nuts also come from the Koroit region. This little area here next to the Y is called the Koroit field. And this type of opal is found there, fascinating looking material. It's when you look at this piece of rock, it reminds you of a giant mushroom. You look underneath, it's got those sort of lines that a mushroom has got, but I don't know whether it's a fossilised mushroom or not, probably not. But it's just interesting patterns that you can see in that rock. You see the little kernels of ironstone sticking out of here, and if you could see closely you'd see the lines of opal matrix sitting in the rock. So who knows what's inside that rock. It could be a fortune in it, but I've just kept it that way because it's such an excellent specimen to show people. One day I might cut it, you never know. That's from the Koroit field, that's where our mine is at present. Now in the same Koroit area you'll find boulder opal, which is pieces of opal like this, which have the veins of colour in it. And this is more like the opal that comes from further north in the Winton and the Quilpie area, which is down here, Quilpie and Winton. This ironstone is very hard and typical of the Koroit field, polishes up like a mirror. So this Q stands for Quilpie and this Y stands for Yowa, and Koroit is around about here. And in this area here, in the Yowa Koroit field, is where we find the Yowa nut type material. Whereas coming up to Quilpie and going through to Winton, you get more of the boulder opal, which is a larger boulders. Of course you can find those large boulders down here in Koroit and Yowa as well. But this area is more prone to producing the large boulders. Here's an example of a boulder that's been sliced out of a rock into a chunk by diamond blades, and notice the cutter has seen all these veins of colour. Can you just hone in on that? The veins of colour coming through here, and he's chopped it out. Wasn't me in this case. He's cut it out like that, allowing the veins of colour to be exposed right around the rock, as you can see, like that. I've been keeping it together with a bit of sticky tape. You can see that little stain mark there over the years, because this is one of the best specimens I've ever seen to illustrate the veins of colour that open up inside the rock. Because this is what happens. One day I sat down with a special type of hammer and I knocked each of these pieces, and you wouldn't believe it, but inside it came up with this colour. Number 1, 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, 7 and 8 split faces. An amazing specimen of boulder opal, probably from the Quilpie or Eromanga fields. So that's the sort of amazing things you see in opal, in this boulder opal field. Of course, you also find strong colours like this one here. This is from the Koroit region, but absolutely gorgeous black opal in very hard, polishable ironstone. Here's an example of another type of opal from the Winton Quilpie region, and this is called boulder opal matrix. Now this is not to be confused with Andamuka matrix, which is a stone that's been treated, but this stone is found naturally in the ground, opal mixed with ironstone, and you probably can't see the colours there in the video so well, but looking at it in real life, this is a magnificent piece. It's like millions of red stars against a background of a very dark black sky, an evening sky with no moon. Just amazing piece of matrix opal. Incidentally, the word matrix comes from the word womb, and you've heard of the word maternal, and so really in this case, or mother. Mother is also, I believe, the origin of the word matrix. So in this case the ironstone is the mother and the opal is the baby. So the mother opal holds the baby, and that's why they call it opal matrix. Boulder opal matrix in this case, and there are other types of matrix as well. One little thing here I could mention to you, just focusing for a brief moment on the Lightning Ridge area. This is what black potch looks like in its natural form in the ground. It comes with sandstone, clay type material like this, and just like the boulder opal has the brown ironstone, in Lightning Ridge you have the black potch, and the cutter, when he finds a piece of black potch with colour, he attempts to expose the colour on the top and allows the black background to sit there in the background of the stone. So that's why they call it black opal, not because the stone in the front is black, because it's black in the background, giving the front colour a brilliance and a depth that you don't see in white or crystal opal. But please don't underestimate crystal or light or white opal, because that's another type of opal altogether, and that's the type of opal that a lot of people love who prefer more delicate, subtle colours. But some of the dynamic colours in white and crystal opal are equal, if not brighter, than bolder and black opal. There is beauty in all the opal fields of Australia. So we hope that little explanation of Australia and the opal fields has helped you a little more to understand where all these beautiful stones come from, and where we have to go 1,000 kilometres from here to here to start digging and bringing back some stuff for you to see. What we want to know now is a little bit about the stone itself, because there's no good knowing where it is if you don't know what it is. Just looking over here for a moment, I don't know if you can see, pan the camera over here, you have an example of quite a large chunk of boulder opal from the Queensland fields, and here are some smaller pieces of the same material. But if you search carefully, you'll find that the rocks that have the opal in it have slight indications. You'll notice perhaps just a vein of colour, as you can see, but when the stone is either broken open or cut with a diamond saw, you start finding things like that inside, which is quite amazing, isn't it? Or here's another example of it here. Beautiful blue-green opal colour. In the case of crystal opal or white opal from Coober Pedy, this is actually a boulder opal, but the white opal in the foreground of the boulder opal is very similar to the Coober Pedy opal. And when you take a piece of Coober Pedy opal, crystal opal, and you cement it or set it in a dark or black background, you get the black opal effect. And that's the interesting thing about opal. Just for a few dollars, maybe $100, maybe $50, maybe $500, perhaps up to $1,000, you can own what looks like a very expensive stone. And even though it's not the solid black opal, it is still a natural opal. So that just gives you a bit of an idea of the different types of opal. There's a lot more could be said about that, but that just gives you a rough idea of what opal is all about. What about the distances that you have to travel? Well, recently we went from the Gold Coast out to Cunnamulla, which is about 1,000 kilometres, and we went out to our excavator at the Koroit field, and then after doing some digging there and buying and selling a bit of rough opal, we headed down towards Lightning Ridge, bypassed Lightning Ridge, went down to Broken Hill, went through Broken Hill and on towards Coober Pedy, and that's a long trip. And by the time we finished off at Coober Pedy and went back down to Adelaide to do a bit of opal selling, and we got back here to the Gold Coast, we looked at the, what is it called, the odometer, is it? Or the speedo, as we used to call it. But I think it was around about 6,000 kilometres that we travelled. Anyway, folks, that's the intro. Let's go into how you cut the stone.